Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States, passed away at his home in Plains, Georgia yesterday at the age of 100. The first sign of how the U.S. House will conduct business next year will be this week, as lawmakers will vote Friday on whether Speaker Mike Johnson will continue or if there will be a new GOP Speaker. The debate has begun on what Joe Biden's legacy looks like long term. Former Hillary Clinton advisor and CNN contributor Karen Finney argued yesterday that President Joe Biden's record will stand the test of time as he leaves office. Crime has gotten so bad in New York City that the guardian angels are making a return to patrolling the subways like they once did back in the 70s. And New Year's resolutions, who makes them and why? We'll take a look at a Pew Research study about Americans' habits when it comes to New Year's resolutions.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson Bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson Bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States, passed away at his home in Plains, Georgia yesterday at the age of 100 years old, making him the longest living president in U.S. history. I can't say that President Carter was necessarily a great president, but Jimmy Carter was a man of deep compassion, love of country, and devoted a lot of time and his life to service of others. His journey from a peanut farm in Georgia to the Oval Office was simply an amazing story. Let's take a moment to reflect on his life, his presidency, and his enduring legacy. Carter was born in 1924 in the small farming town of Plains, Georgia. His upbringing on the family farm instilled in him a profound respect for the land and for the working class, a value that would pretty much define his life and his leadership over the years. After he graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy, Carter served as a submariner in the Navy, rising to the rank of lieutenant. In 1946, Carter married Rosalind Smith, a fellow Plains native who became his lifelong partner in both love and in service. She had a dedication to serving others as well. Together, they built a life rooted in their shared commitment to faith, family, and community. When Carter's father passed away in 1953, he returned to Plains to take over the family peanut farm. But his ambition soon turned to public service, and in 1962, he entered politics, winning a seat in the Georgia State Senate. Jimmy Carter's rise to the national stage was pretty quick. After serving as Georgia's governor from 1971 to 1975, he became the Democrat leader, promising a government that was both competent and compassionate. In 1976, following the Watergate scandal, Carter defeated President Gerald Ford to become the 39th President of the United States. His presidency was responsible for the Camp David Accords, which brought peace between Egypt and Israel, and the establishment of diplomatic relations with China. Carter's presidency, however, had its challenges, as we all know. Those of us old enough to remember, we remember the Iran hostage crisis, the economic struggles, including high inflation, energy shortages, some of the things that we have witnessed in the Biden administration. This really cast a huge cloud over his administration. His perceived lack of decisiveness on the global stage contributed to his defeat by Ronald Reagan in the 1980 election. He became a one-term president. After leaving Washington, he founded the Carter Center in 1982, focusing on human rights, disease eradication, and free elections around the world. Through Habitat for Humanity, which he was very well known, he worked tirelessly to provide housing for those in need, often picking up the hammer himself well into his later years. His dedication to peace and humanitarian efforts earned him the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002. In his later years, Jimmy Carter's faith remained central to his life, he was a devout Christian. He served as a deacon and Sunday school teacher at the Maranatha Baptist Church in Plains. Even as his health declined, Jimmy Carter reportedly faced his final days with grace, spending time with his family and reflecting on a life dedicated to service. He leaves behind 4 children, 11 grandchildren, and 13 great-grandchildren, as well as countless lives that he has touched over the years with his compassion, with his service to country. And Jimmy Carter will be known and remembered as a decent Christian man. Now on to breaking news of today. Republican New York Representative Mike Lawler said yesterday on ABC News that he would support Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson for re-election, warning his fellow lawmakers that the Speaker is essential for issues like certifying President-elect Donald Trump's election. Lawmakers are expected to conduct an election for the House Speaker this Friday. Johnson has faced some criticism and doubts from fellow Republicans over his leadership in recent weeks following the chaotic vote on the 1,574-page continuing resolution that just became a disaster. On ABC News this week, host Jonathan Karl asked Representative Lawler for his thoughts on Johnson, questioning whether he believed the House Speaker would be reelected and whether he should be.
Yes and yes. The fact is that Mike Johnson inherited a disaster when Matt Gaetz and several of my colleagues teamed up with 208 Democrats to remove Kevin McCarthy, which will go down as the single stupidest thing I've ever seen in politics. With that said, removing Mike Johnson would equally be as stupid. The fact is that these folks are playing with fire, and if they think they're somehow going to get a more conservative speaker, they're kidding themselves. Mike Johnson is arguably the most conservative speaker that's ever been elected to the office. He's done a great job keeping the conference unified, getting major things off the plate, and ultimately keeping the majority, which frankly, despite the best efforts of some of these same people that are now calling for Johnson's removal, we held on to the House because of seats like mine. And I'll be very clear, as I was during the Kevin McCarthy fight, I'm not going to bend to their will. So if they think somehow that they are going to end up in a stronger position by removing Mike Johnson, they're not. I think the bottom line here is this. Donald Trump has been given a mandate to govern. He's been given majorities in the Senate and the House. And we have a lot of work to do on behalf of the American people with respect to the economy, with respect to the border, with respect to energy policy, and the foreign affairs disaster that has been left on Donald Trump's doorstep by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We can't get anything done unless we have a speaker, including certifying President Trump's election on January 6th. So to waste time over a nonsensical intramural food fight is a joke. And I think my colleagues, if they didn't learn anything from the 118th Congress, it should be that we absolutely do not need a fight over the speakership.
And in this case, I think Mike Lawler is probably right. I'm not sure that this is the time. Yeah, Mike Johnson has not done everything that we would have hoped. And again, the way he handled the spending bill the other week, the fact that we even got to the point that there was a 1,574-page bill that evidently he and leadership had agreed to initially until there was pushback. But still, we got to get Donald Trump. We got to get those votes certified. We got to get Donald Trump inaugurated on January the 20th. We don't need anything to disrupt that or to interrupt that. Johnson, of course, won the speakership in October of 2023 as the House GOP's 4th Speaker nominee after former Republican California Representative Kevin McCarthy was ousted from the position due to a motion led by former GOP Florida Representative Matt Gaetz. You remember the chaos then? We don't need that again. Johnson has received support from most of his colleagues. Some have recently voiced doubts after the CR, the continuing resolution, which was filled with provisions that would have cost hundreds of billions of dollars. And it is suspect on how that got in there, how he allowed so much of the Democrats' pork to be included in the continuing resolution when everybody was saying, let's just keep government open for now and let Donald Trump get into the Oval Office. And you have some who are saying they're not going to support him because of that now. Republican Kentucky Representative Thomas Massey became the first GOP House member on December the 18th to publicly state he would not support Mike Johnson for re-election, saying that he would vote for somebody else. Don't know who that somebody else is. Not even sure that somebody else has been named yet. But I think Thomas Massey was saying, I'm going to vote for anyone but Mike Johnson. Pennsylvania Representative Scott Perry declined to publicly endorse Johnson this week, telling Fox Business's Maria Bartiromo that while Johnson has done an admirable job under tough conditions, he's keeping his options open. There are other members. Additionally, House Freedom Caucus Chair Andy Harris told Fox Business the same thing, that GOP lawmakers need to consider what's the best path forward. I think right now, folks, we need to admit that Mike Johnson should be reelected. Let's certify the votes. Let's get Donald Trump inaugurated. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. If you've been putting off a visit to PhD Weight Loss, now's your time because it comes with an amazing free gift. Joey Hudson here. During December, the founder of PhD Weight Loss, Dr. Ashley Lucas, is giving the first 100 people to sign up for a consultation a free weight loss and energy supplement bundle. What a great gift. Do what I did. Take control now before heading into the indulgent holiday season. Get a grasp and avoid the holiday pounds. I dropped over 30 pounds and I'm not worried about parties and overeating because my PhD coach taught me coping mechanisms to help me enjoy holiday events without gaining the weight. Best of all, I never took a weight loss drug. I'm not dependent on a prescription. And I was never hungry. PhD Weight Loss is not about depriving yourself. Lose the awful belly fat, gain energy, and avoid weight-related health issues. You will feel so amazing about yourself and truly enjoy the holiday season. PhD Weight Loss. Ask about the free gift when you book your consultation. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or go to myphdweightloss.com. Continuing today's show, hope you had a great weekend and you're looking forward to, with holidays like Christmas in the middle of the week and now New Year's Day in the middle of the week, it just really kind of makes the week different, doesn't it? But it's that time of the year. New Year's resolutions. Do you make resolutions? Are you one to write down things that you want to do differently in the coming year? And do you keep them? A Pew Research study, which asked people questions as part of a larger study, found that 3 in 10 Americans report making at least one resolution every year, with half of this group making more than one, according to Pew. Nearly a month into the new year, the survey also finds that most people who made the resolutions have stuck with them, although 13% say they did not keep any of them. Here are some of the key facts about Americans and how we make New Year's resolutions and why we make them, based on the survey of American adults. Pew Research Center included questions about New Year's resolutions as part of a large survey. They surveyed 5,140 adults, asking them questions about how they plan for a new year. Here's some of the findings. Nearly half, 49% of adults ages 18 to 29, say that they made at least one resolution, by far the largest share of any age group. And that's interesting to me, that the younger people do that. I would have thought that it would have been the more middle-aged, those who are kind of in the prime of their careers. The older people, I get that, because I'm one of them. About a third, 31% of those aged 30 to 49, say that they made a resolution, while only about a fifth, 21% of those adults 50 and older have done so. So I fall in that category, the 50 and older. There are only modest differences, according to Pew, in who makes resolutions by, if you break it down by race, by gender, and even by partisanship, by what political party they're part of. Across all age groups, though, sizable majorities of those who make resolutions say that their goals focus on health, exercise, or diet. Now, how many times have you done that? How many times have you made a resolution that you're going to lose weight. And this is the year. You're 20, 30 pounds heavier. This is the year you're going to lose weight. Well, I did do that almost, this will be 5 years ago when I decided to do the PhD weight loss program. And I was able to lose 30 pounds, and I've been able to maintain that weight for it to be 5 years this July. So it can be done. Unfortunately, most people who make the resolution to lose weight don't always keep that resolution. Here's some other findings. Overall, 79%, according to Pew, say that their resolutions concern health. This is 79% overall. Smaller but still sizable shares, Pew says, make resolutions about money or finances. 61%. Have you done that? Maybe you make a resolution that this is the year you're going to get a better job. You're going to really search for that better paying job. Or maybe you're going to continue your education. You're going to get an advanced degree or a certificate or something that will allow you to start looking for that better paying job. 57% people say that they're going to work on their personal relationships, whether that be with their spouse, with their family, with their kids, and maybe with just their friends, and maybe their parents, their siblings. 55% make resolutions involving their hobbies or their personal interests, and then 49% make resolutions based on their work and their career. Younger Americans, according to Pew, are more likely than older Americans to make resolutions about each of these topics, apart from the health. That health, losing weight, getting healthy, that seems to be across the board among all age groups, because we all have that in common. We all want to be healthy. We all, if we have added a few pounds over the holidays, which a lot of people do, then that's one of the more natural resolutions is, okay, I started gaining weight at Thanksgiving. I continued during Christmas. Now I've got to take it off. And that's my New Year's resolution. I'm going to lose that 10 pounds I just gained. Younger Americans, especially, of course, make resolutions about their work, about their career, and that makes sense. 65% of those under the age of 30 who made resolutions say that they made one related to their work or career. This is by far the largest share of any age group, according to Pew. But that makes sense. You're in that age group, and you're thinking about your career. You're thinking about, well, I'm not exactly happy with this job, and I'm young enough to make a change. As you get older, you kind of feel like you can't make a change, that you're stuck where you are, and you just want to retire. You just want to finish the job that you're doing and get to retirement, right? Less than a month into the new year, according to Pew, a large majority of those who made the resolutions, 87%, say they have kept at least some of them, which that's higher than I thought it would be. I thought that probably within a month that a larger percentage would have already given up, because that seems to be the case with dieting. Pew says about 6 in 10 adults who made at least one resolution say they kept all of them so far. This is 1 month in, while 28% say that they kept some of them, and then another 13% say they kept none of them. Again, I would have thought that would have been higher. So I guess people are better at making and keeping resolutions than I thought. Many Americans just don't like making resolutions at all. Of the 70% of Americans who did not make a New Year's resolution, a majority, 56%, say that their main reason for not doing so is simply they don't like to make them. They can't keep them. They know they're not going to keep them, so why make them? About 1 in 10, 12% of those who did not make a resolution say they break them so easily they just don't even try. They give up before they even get started. Nearly as many, 9%, say that they couldn't think of a resolution to make. 6% said they forgot to make one this year. Another 17% say that they have another reason for making no resolution, but it's none of our business. They don't want us to know. They don't care. What's your resolution? Do you make resolutions? Do you write them down? Do you share them with someone else for some accountability? Email me, text me, let me know. Do you make resolutions? How many? Maybe we go into this together. Email me your resolutions, joey@joeyhudson.com. In these final weeks of the Biden-Harris administration, there's going to be a lot of talk about Joe Biden's legacy. It's already started. Former Hillary Clinton advisor and CNN contributor Karen Finney argued yesterday that President Biden's record will, quote, stand the test of time as he leaves office. Finney conceded that some critics, such as her fellow panelist Scott Jennings, have called out the administration, rightfully so, over not disclosing Biden's mental state. However, she quickly dismissed in lieu of Biden's foreign policy, saying that she thinks Joe Biden has done a good job, he's been a good leader, that he will be remembered that way.
Will his time in office be remembered? I think there's probably a shorter-term question and then a longer-term question.
Sure, I agree with that. Look, I think in the longer term, we will remember that this is a president and vice president who helped us come back from the brink during COVID, when people were dying by the hundreds of thousands on a daily basis, and we were in our homes, and companies and small businesses were falling off a cliff, and he helped to get vaccines, get us out of our homes, get us back to work, and invested in this country. I think one of the things that you'll see him doing with the time that he has left is more around investments in the CHIPS and Science Act. I think that's actually going to be transformational in communities around the country. I think Donald Trump will take credit for it, but Joe Biden's record with regard to the things that he's accomplished, I think will stand the test of time.
Sometimes when I hear people like her talking about Joe Biden and his legacy and all the great things that he's accomplished, I think they're talking about someone else. This is not the Joe Biden that I know. This is not the Joe Biden that I've watched these past 4 years. What about you? Do you believe that Joe Biden's legacy will stand the test of time, as she says? As you can imagine, Scott Jennings pushed back in what became a spirited discussion on CNN's State of the Union. Jennings issued a sharp rebuke of President Joe Biden's legacy, predicting that the 82-year-old would leave office in disgrace, he said. He talked about a much broader debate over how Biden's presidency will be remembered, with liberal panelists defending the president's record while conceding concerns over his cognitive health. I mean, how can they admit now that Joe Biden has had cognitive issues but defend him? Because that's kind of what they're doing here. They're kind of admitting now that they can't defend the cognitive issues, but they're just pushing them to the side again. That, they really weren't that important. He was still able to accomplish some things. Well, what? He has torn our economy up. He's allowed our country to literally be invaded by millions of illegals from all around the world. Now Donald Trump's going to have to figure out how to get them out. And he has just been so obsessed with Donald Trump that he's done things in these final months to try to set Donald Trump up for failure. I mean, think about some of the things just in the last few weeks. He continues to eliminate student loan debt. He continues, he's supposedly going to announce another $1 billion+ to Ukraine this week. He got caught selling off the fence, the border wall fence materials that Donald Trump was going to use to finish building the wall. He got selling those off for pennies on the dollar. Finally, the court said you got to stop, and they have agreed to finally. So what has Joe Biden really done? I agree with Scott Jennings. Here's Scott Jennings' response to Karen Finney.
You think the Middle East is in better shape today than when he took office?
Well, I think he got our hostages home. I think that's a big deal. I think it's important.
I'm sorry, which hostages?
He's gotten a number of people home. He was able.
There's still 100 people over there.
Well, there were more than that.
Including some Americans. Look, I think he's gonna leave office in disgrace. The Hunter Biden pardon was disgraceful. He's going to be remembered largely for inflation and for the disastrous Afghanistan pullout. And I think as we continue to, we're just getting the first draft of this now, but as we continue to learn about the massive cover-up that went on, not about his health, but about his mental acuity.
I wish you could have seen her face when she talked about, well, he got our hostages home, and Jennings quickly said, which hostages? And reminded her that there's still over 100 there. It's like she didn't know what to do. She was shocked. Ms. Finney acknowledged recent reports about Biden's declining cognitive state, including a Wall Street Journal piece describing his health struggles, but maintained that his leadership and perseverance in office would overshadow those concerns. Yeah, he pushed on. He had cognitive, he couldn't remember where he was or what he was doing, but he pushed on. It's the craziest argument I've heard. Jennings vehemently dismissed her rosy portrayal, citing inflation, talked about the chaotic Afghanistan withdrawal, Biden's recent pardon of his son, Hunter Biden, which I think will be the single most thing that will cloud his administration. I think he'll go down in history as the president who pardoned his crooked son. Former South Carolina State Representative Bakari Sellers, who's a Democrat, attempted to shift the focus to President-elect Donald Trump during this panel discussion, arguing that Trump's 2 impeachments would cement his legacy in disgrace. Look, we're not talking about Donald Trump's legacy. They were talking about Joe Biden's legacy. And this is what they always have to try to get the conversation turned back to Trump. Trump's like their excuse for everything. So I guess now they're going to blame Trump's 2 impeachments on clouding Joe Biden's legacy. Sellers said being impeached twice is leaving in disgrace. Well, he left in disgrace, and the American people decided they wanted him back. How do you explain that? She then defended Biden as a leader who consistently prioritized the American people, even amid controversies, she said. Wow. The panelists overall agreed that Biden's cognitive health and the administration's alleged efforts to obscure it would probably be large in the historical assessments of his presidency. Jennings, of course, doubled down on that, asserting that the Hunter Biden pardon was a watershed moment that would overshadow Joe Biden's overall presidency, which I tend to agree with. But I also think the fact that some have admitted he probably should have never entered the Oval Office to begin with, that his cognitive decline had already started when he was elected. And we'll hear more about this as people leave the Biden administration and they start writing their books, these insider books. I think we're going to learn that Joe Biden did not know where he was half the time. And that's a scary thing to know, that the leader of the free world was a confused old man. Over the weekend, Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz made some pretty bold predictions on Newsmax about the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas and what it means as we head towards President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration on January the 20th. Of course, this is something that Joe Biden would like to accomplish before he leaves office. I don't know that it's going to happen. I'd be surprised if it does. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't release some or all of the hostages immediately upon Donald Trump taking office. Dershowitz believes that. Dershowitz believes that Hamas will release, quote, a couple of hostages before the inauguration. He expects them to be Americans. He says this would be a symbolic gesture to Trump. Make no mistake, though, Dershowitz says that this won't be enough to stop the war. His message is simple. All hostages must be released. And the ultimate goal has to be creating a situation where this kind of atrocity can never happen again. He stressed that the United States and the incoming Trump administration cannot tolerate the use of hostages to dictate policy. I don't think Donald Trump will. Dershowitz went on to say that Israel must be allowed and encouraged to continue its victories against what he calls the enemies of the democracy and the enemies of peace. And here's where it gets interesting. Dershowitz believes that Hamas and Iran fear Donald Trump. I agree with that as well. I don't think they want to deal with Donald Trump. I think they recognize that there is a new sheriff in town, and Donald Trump's not going to allow them to do what Joe Biden did. He said Trump should issue a clear warning to Iran. You have 60 days to dismantle your nuclear program, and if you don't do it, we'll do it for you. According to Dershowitz, threats from Donald Trump actually work, and they listen to them, as opposed to threats from Joe Biden. Here's where Dershowitz got really fired up, though. He slammed the useful idiots protesting on American college campuses, claiming they're emboldening Hamas. He said, these young men and women have blood on their hands. Why? Because their one-sided protest against Israel failed to condemn Hamas or call for a two-state solution. Dershowitz added, they won't want Israel to survive as a nation-state of the Jewish people. They want one state, a Palestinian state. And he's right about that. Now, Dershowitz didn't hold back when talking about Obama's foreign policy either, calling it the worst foreign policy presidency in modern American history. He blamed Obama for creating the conditions that led to the October 7th attacks and the hostage crisis. According to Dershowitz, Trump will reverse those policies by being tough and leveraging the credible threat of force. He said diplomacy alone will never work. He pointed to the disastrous Iran deal under Obama, which he claims rewarded terrorism and funneled billions to groups like Hezbollah and Hamas and put them into a situation to where they were bold enough to attack Israel. The message from Dershowitz is clear. The stakes are high, and tough leadership, like Donald Trump's leadership, is needed to ensure peace and stability in the region. How long do you think it's going to take before they release the hostages under a Donald Trump presidency? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. On the text line, Albert says, I opened the news on my phone Saturday morning. The first article that pops up is from the Washington Post showing a picture of supposedly 50-plus-year-old people wanting Biden to forgive their college debt. It's titled, Elderly Student Loan Borrowers Owe $121 billion. One woman who is 71 years old owes $268,000. How did this person qualify for such a large loan, which evidently wasn't spent on getting a higher education? All I have to say about this is that these people got themselves into this debt situation, and I am a financially responsible person and should not have to pay for their stupidity. In my opinion, the student loan program and forgiveness is corrupt. Albert, I agree with you. They made bad decisions, and you and I are supposed to pay for those under the Joe Biden program. But hey, get ready, Albert, because he'll try to forgive as much of this as he can between now and January the 20th. Your texts are welcome, as are your emails, joey@joeyhudson.com. Here's a bizarre story out of Loveland, Colorado, where a would-be bank robber and his plans to walk out with some cash went off the rails, all because of his handwriting. Police say that the incident happened around 5 p.m. on December the 17th at the First National Bank on North Lincoln Avenue in Loveland, Colorado, which is about 50 miles north of Denver. The suspect walked into the bank, handed the teller a note, and here's where it gets kind of wild. The note was so illegible The teller couldn't read it. She couldn't figure out what it said. Now, this would be my luck, because you can't read my handwriting either. She couldn't read it. She didn't know what it was saying. She didn't know she was being robbed. According to police, the man got frustrated as the teller is standing there struggling to decipher his scribbling on this piece of paper. He ultimately left the bank empty-handed. He turned around and walked out with nothing. Now, talk about a failed attempt. Now, maybe she was acting. I don't know. The suspect was captured on surveillance footage. He was wearing a brown hoodie, green pants, a green baseball cap, sunglasses, brown gloves. Police are still searching for him. If you're in that Loveland, Colorado area, you keep an eye out. This fashion-forward and handwriting challenged individual is on the loose. This story does underscore something, though, that we talk about all the time. A society where law and order seems to be breaking down. People are desperate. And the fact that you have some of these large cities who just won't punish people, that they literally arrest them and then turn them back out on the street immediately, it has emboldened people to try these things in the first place. I got some advice for you, though. If you're going to attempt something illegal, and I'm not advising you to do so, in fact, you should not, but at least make sure they can read your note. This is just the craziest thing that I've heard recently. Could not read the note. The state of New York, speaking of crime, we have watched some of these horrendous stories in the past few weeks. And, of course, the New York City subways situation has gone from bad to worse. So much so that, remember the Guardian Angels? They, back in the 70s and 80s, they rode the subways, walked the streets of New York when things were so bad there. Well, they're returning. After the horrifying arson murder of the sleeping woman, Curtis Sliwa and his Red Beret-wearing volunteer group say that they're beefing up their presence on the subways again. Sliwa announced Sunday at the Coney Island Stillwell Avenue station where the crime occurred, where this lady was set on fire by this illegal, and he literally fanned the flames with his shirt. Announced that the Guardian Angels are going to increase their numbers, they're going to increase their training, and patrols to the levels that they saw back in the 70s, when 45 plus years ago, when Sliwa started the organization. He said, we're going to make sure we have a visual presence just like we had in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And they did. I mean, the Guardian Angels, they were folklore. Criminals recognized that when the guy with the red beret was on the subway, you didn't mess around. It was worse to have a Guardian Angel on than a police officer. The group's current 150 members in New York City say they'll focus on patrolling subway trains, performing wellness checks on homeless individuals, and reporting issues to the New York Police Department. Sliwa emphasized the subways are out of control, he said. We're doing this constantly now. Starting today, that's going to be our complete focus. You know, Sliwa sort of parlayed his notoriety as the Guardian Angel leader, and he's getting on up in years now. He parlayed that into a talk radio gig. He is heard on local talk radio there in the New York City area. This renewed effort comes, of course, after a number of shocking incidences, and the most recent, again, this still unidentified woman. I don't know if they just can't identify her because her body was burned so badly, or if they just haven't released her identity yet. The suspect, Sebastian Zapita Khalil, an illegal immigrant from Guatemala, he was arrested. He's charged with arson and murder. The crime was described as unprovoked and left many questioning the state of public safety in the city and people's response. Because of Daniel Penny, we're told that people literally stood around and watched this lady burn and didn't do anything because people are fearful now that they'll be treated like Daniel Penny was. Sliwa didn't mince words, calling out the lack of active police patrols and urging citizens to step up. He said, you see something, you say something, you got to do something. The Guardian Angels have a storied history of stepping in when the city has been overwhelmed by crime in the past. Sliwa insists that the need for their presence is dire. He said, "I've never seen it this bad, never." But not everyone's on board, of course. A representative for Mayor Eric Adams dismissed Sliwa's efforts as meaningless stunts, claiming that the mayor is delivering real action by surging 1,000 police officers into the subways and reducing overall crime. Well, you know, the day that this lady lost her life, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, just a couple hours earlier, had posted on X that the subways were safe again. That due to some of the state programs that the governor's office had instituted, that people were safe again, that crime was down. 2 hours later, this lady loses her life. The City Hall spokesperson says the mayor remains focused on real solutions, not theatrics. And that's sort of the reputation that Curtis Sliwa has in the New York City area. Some of the local officials, because he makes them look bad. When you get people out with red berets on, making the subway safer, when they're able to stop crimes that uniformed police officers can't, it kind of makes the whole city look bad. And so the local officials want to discount what Curtis Sliwa and the Guardian Angels actually stand for and what they're able to do. But they were quite effective back in their day. People who lived in New York at the time say that that people were afraid, that the crooks were afraid to be on the subways, not knowing when a guardian angel might show up, that they really act as a deterrent. Many New Yorkers, people on the street, are welcoming the guardian angel's presence. An MTA worker told the New York Post, "I think it'll help. I don't think the cops downstairs are going to like it, but yeah, there are no cops up here." Sliwa's return to the subways, it's not about this particular crime. It's about just reigniting a sense of safety and accountability and people getting involved, people taking it into their own hands, taking their safety into their own hands and helping one another, not standing back with your cell phone videotaping something. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.